Welcome to Wild Pursuits with Cross Trail Outfitters, where we guide the next generation to Christ through the outdoors. Join us around the campfire as we share stories of faith, courage, and adventure.
So, Kevin, this might be a good time for you to kind of explain how two strengths can look like another strength.
Oh, there you go.
Because of the combination of the two strengths.
Yeah,
that's a great point to bring up. Thanks. So what Jen's talking about is called theme dynamics. It's how the strengths work together. So even though Kirk and I share competition, restorative, responsibility, those aren't as high for me as they are for him. So his competition is going to look different than mine because the other strengths around it affect it and make it show up in a dynamic way. And also, like, it's not the things at the bottom, again, they're not weaknesses and they're not things we can't do. Like, for instance, harmony's 34 for me. The last strength on the 34 is harmony. And I always joke, I'm like, that means I can't get along with anybody. And, like, that's not what it means. For me, it just means I like to go really fast. I don't always wait for everybody. But I do have positivity as a strength, which is definitely a superpower, having a good attitude, being able to find the good in things, the good in people. And I'll combine that with strategic, which is like the ability to create plans based on a vision very easily, on possibility alone. And so I use positivity to get people excited about the plans I've created, and that looks just like harmony. People move my way because of that. And so it's not that you can't do it. You know, something always makes me laugh a little, you know, when I see empathy at 34, like my brother's is 33. And you know, especially I get to work with a lot of women from Mary Kay still. And like, if I see empathy at 34, they're like, is that bad? I'm like, yeah, it probably means you're a sociopath or a serial killer, but you know, like, it doesn't mean anything. It just means you're not super empathetic. It means you probably had either a really empathetic parent or one that didn't have any. It's usually one of those two things. And like, not good or bad. It's just, you still have empathy. It's just not how you lead, or it's just not as dominant for you. It's neutral. It depends on how you use it is what matters.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. I think I talked too much earlier. We didn't really get into the whole balcony and basement, or maybe we did. Did I miss that somewhere? Or did I talk too much beyond when I asked that question?
I've talked about it a couple of times, but I'm glad to do it again. So, like, the balcony and the basement is language that Gallup used to use like 7 years ago or whenever it was that I went through their training. They told us in that training, hey, we're not going to use this anymore because now we're in Europe and Europeans don't have basements and they don't understand, which confused me because I live in Texas. We don't have basements, and I kind of figured it out, right? But anyways, they don't use that language anymore. And I think better language for me is brilliance and beast, because like when I'm in my brilliance, the way God designed me at my best, like that's the balcony. That's the highest form of my strengths. When I'm in the basement, like that's my beast mode. That's where I'm very reactive, and I'm like reacting to situations, to people, instead of responding. And so I want to be creative from a place of love. Like that's alignment. That's the balcony. That's my brilliance. When I react from fear, that's regressive. That's, you know, what drives me down the basement steps, and I let my beast out. And like an easy example of that would be, you know, because that's our option at every moment. I can create from love. I can react from fear. Those are my two options. And when I create from love, I get my balcony, my brilliance. When I react from fear, I get my basement, my beast. So if you're driving down the road, there's a lot of people in Dallas where I live, and they're everywhere, and I'm one of them. And if somebody cuts you off, you know, I can like create from love and like Texas wave, right? Like, hey, man, cool. Maybe they're in a hurry. They got to go to the bathroom. Who knows, right? Whatever. It's not about me. I know that much.
Her wife's pregnant. That's what you say all the time. She says all the time. She goes, his wife's pregnant. He's got to get there. And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, maybe she really is. Who knows? I don't know. I don't live his life. But if I react from fear, what happens? Then I wave with that, you know, one finger, right? That's you know, anger is based in fear. Any negative emotion is based in fear. So what I do anytime I react from fear, I go into the basement, my beast gets out, I waste a lot of energy, and I create some sort of damage to myself, damage to other people. Because anytime like I'm being toxic like that, I'm getting like toxic means damaging to an organism. And if I feel anger, that gives me a different chemical cocktail in my body than it does when I feel love. One is expansive and one is constrictive. And every time I'm constrictive like that, I regress and I move backwards in my evolution. And I don't ever want to go backwards. I want to go forwards. And, you know, for the people who aren't into like growth of any kind, like you're not staying the same, you're regressing. Like personal inflation is eating you up. The world's still revolving around you, just not the way you want it to. So that's your choice. You can grow and be better, or you can regress and be worse. And man, every time I think about it like that, it's really easy for me to be motivated to be better. But you know what? It's not always fun and super exciting to like go study your strengths. You know, I've worked with thousands of people with this tool over the years through groups and one-on-one. And so many times I've asked this question, like hundreds of times, hey, tell me your top 10 strengths. Tell me your top 5. And maybe I can count on one hand how many people could actually do it. Most people like, hold on, they start looking through their phone or pieces of paper, and myself included. When my coach asked me years ago, he's like, remember, it was like sitting on my shelf, as I talked about earlier. But like, you know, to Kirk's point, these are our superpowers. And if I don't even have them memorized, like what's the likelihood that I'm able to use them as well as I could, if at all? You know, if we bumped into Superman walking down the street and we're like, hey man, like what superpowers do you have? And he's like, I don't know, hold on. And he looks at his phone, he's like, oh my God, I could fly. Oh my God, I have X-ray vision. Like, right? It'd be absurd, right? We should know what our superpowers are. If nothing else, so that I can understand when I'm damaging other people in the basement with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is good, because I think it's important to know, you might, for lack of better words, like self-awareness, understanding that you know you're in the basement and recognizing that, and then you can get out of that basement personally. And that's how, to me, it's one of the many ways you can grow as a human. How do we? So anyway, that's important to me. But this question just popped in my head, because I've been asked this before, because I'm very loud about my faith, but I'm also very loud about the strength finders have been so instrumental in helping me in my own personal life and in leadership. I've been asked before where, well, if you're focusing on all of these strengths and all these things and all this self-help stuff, then you're not focusing on God, and you're relying on these things and not relying on God being who you are in your own life. How would you answer that? I know how I would answer that, because to me, I won't even answer that. I'll let you answer that first, but I know how I would. But how do you answer that? Because I have been asked that multiple times. Not outside of CTO and inside CTO.
That's an interesting question, and I think what it makes me think of is, well, taking this assessment doesn't create these strengths. Like, God created me. This assessment just gives me a language to understand the excellence God created me in, and how I can use that in more productive ways in His service with humility and wisdom. And it's so powerful, because all this is, it's like learning a musical instrument. You're the instrument. These are the notes of your excellence. And if you understand how to use your excellence and make it foundational, that is much more powerful than if you don't really understand how to use your strengths on demand in a very intentional, aware way. Instead, your excellence is more situational. Yeah, I show up in my excellence sometimes, but like in certain situations, if things go right. But if it's foundational, and that comes from a deep understanding of the principles of it, like then you're much more likely to stay aligned with the way that He designed you. And I mean, that would be how I'd answer that.
I love that. No, you said it much more eloquently than I would, but that is essentially what I have always felt. That actually helped me in my walk with Christ, because it allowed me to see, this is how God created me. This is who I'm supposed to be. That it's not a bad thing. Now, we just talked about, if you're in the basement of those strings, it can be a not so good thing.
To your point right there, I want to make a point. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like the balcony basement, when I'm in the balcony, like I'm doing it His way, right? And when I'm in the basement, I'm doing it my way. Like I'm doing it the finite, limited way in the basement. But like when I'm letting Him shine through me like the sun, it's like I'm a prism, right? Just reflecting like all the gifts He gave me and the way that He wanted me to serve at the highest level.
Yeah, that's good. No, that's right.
Well, and we each have a calling on our lives to build relationships and to share Christ with others. And if we don't know who we are and our strengths, then we're going to continually be focused on ourselves instead of focused on other people. I think not knowing your strengths is easier to focus on yourself than focusing on other people. And when I know how I work well with other people and I know what I have to offer other people, it's easier for me to share my strengths, help them build their strengths, and share Christ with them. So I think that's also another part of
Yeah.
it, is that we all have that calling on our life. We're all leaders. We're all leading somebody. I mean, even a first grader is probably leading a kindergartner. We're all leaders of somebody, or at some point in our life, we lead somebody, whether we're, moms or daughters or, whatever. Like, there's some place in our life where we're leading somebody. And so knowing what our strengths are gives us permission to lead other people well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Jen's top strength's empathy, like Kirk said earlier, and Jen uses it in a really beautiful way because it's like a very compassionate form of empathy, and it just you feel very cared for and very seen. But that's also one of the gifts this assessment gives us. Like, yeah, it's about understanding yourself, but also it's about understanding other people. And the more I can understand other people and their uniqueness, like all behavior makes sense when I have enough information. Like, why are they doing that? Like, when I truly understand what drives them, that allows me to speak in words that they think in already, so I'm going to connect deeper. But I could also see where they're coming from. Again, my brother's deliberative strength, it makes him very methodical and what would appear slow almost, like, and to take action, but he's like brilliant and very successful. I don't mean like slow-witted, I just mean slow to act. But I don't ever get mad at that anymore because I have empathy for it, because I understand he's using his strengths to serve me. That's how he serves other people, is by being careful and being methodical. I serve other people by being the example of what not to do a lot of times. But like with activators, like, hey, let me just get started. Hey, yeah, don't smash your hand in that door. It really hurts, right? And like, I'm the warning sign. But it's so cool because I don't go to the lake by my house and get mad at fish for swimming, right? Fish swim. So why would I get mad at him for doing what he does naturally? Being deliberative, being
Yeah.
cautious.
Yeah, no, you're dead on. And I'm sitting here thinking, I know this is probably a whole nother podcast of just personality tests, and we've got talked about that. I know we've used DISC method a lot, and that was powerful for us. Matter of fact, that's again a whole nother podcast. It actually partly what saved our marriage many years ago, in terms of understanding who you are, how God made you. That's what the Strength Finders does. It understand that's the personality that God made you, but that's also the strength that God gave you. And now go understand that's your superpower. Now go change, whatever phrase you want to put it, go change the world. Go change the lives of others. Go do what God's called you to do. I think very few people in our world today ever really end up doing really what they were called to do. They get stuck in a rut due to life circumstances, sometimes maybe even choices, but sometimes just circumstances, just life things that's happened, and they end up doing something else, and they can't figure out why they're not happy. They can't figure out why they just aren't satisfied. And in many cases, it can be the fact that if you don't know the Lord and you don't have a relationship with the Lord, that is, if you don't have that, then that has a lot to do with it, if not everything to do with it. But once you really find who and how God made you, it's like the ultimate thing in life, besides our relationship with Christ. I've been blessed my entire life. I share this with a lot of people that God has seemed to have always given me the desires of my heart. When I'll go all the way back to when I laid eyes on this woman, literally in fifth grade, I knew I wanted this girl in fifth grade, right? And didn't know how it was going to happen, but always had this fascination with her. And then obviously God gave me that desire in my heart. I've always been into sports, working out, all those things. And for many years, that's what I did. I trained athletes, both collegiately, high school wise, trained, used to compete, do all kinds of things, all the way even to my adulthood, and did it as a living, had our own gym, worked with athletes, trained people. So I was in that world for many years. And then obviously I've always loved to hunt and fish. and always loved telling people about Jesus. Always have been involved and plugged into different ministry and within the church. But then after I sold the business with our gym and all the things we were doing with athletes, God called me to full-time vocational ministry. And then God told me, actually, for a period of time, I was so into hunting and fishing at that time, he actually told me to give it up. And I wrestled him with that for a while. But when I gave it up, literally, I only had to give it up for like 6 months or so. I didn't do it at all. But then all of a sudden, he brought Cross Trail Outfitters in my life, a hunting and fishing ministry. So now, for the last almost 17 years, I have been part of Cross Trail Outfitters and been doing hunting and fishing ministry. So now I've gotten another desire in my heart, hunting and fishing and telling people about Jesus. So literally for the last we've been married 33 years this June.
32.
Yeah, but it'll be 33. No? 32? See? I just think it's been longer because I've been
Yeah, you had the right decade, so at least
right,
you know
right.
in the 30s. So.
32 years this June, we will be married, and we dated for 7 years prior to that. So yes, we were high school sweethearts. A little fifth grader finally got the desire of his heart. Just took about 5 years to get her talked into looking my way. But he's always given that to me, and when I think of that, that just always encourages me that I have always been able to do and utilize it vocationally and to change the lives of others. Back on the training side, affecting people's lives mentally, physically, emotionally, not just as an athlete. We did a lot of personal training as well and helping people find a better version of themselves physically, emotionally. I use that as a ministry as well. And then in and out of that, being a deacon and being involved in men's ministries and different stuff, was implementing all those types of things. And it came with its struggles and its ups and downs, just like everything does. And now here I am with Cross Trail Outfitters, and in a whole different phase. I don't hunt and fish as much personally anymore, but actually don't even take kids out as much anymore because it's more of an administration type role. But I love empowering men, talking to other men that are interested in wanting to be start a chapter in CTO in another state or other places. But what they don't know is not only do we want them plugged in CTO, what I want to figure out is a way to actually find a better version of themselves, not just in Cross Trail Outfitters, but a better version of themselves, to be a better father, to be a better man, to be a better leader, to be a better follower of Christ. And so again, I've been blessed in that in my entire life. Always gotten the desires of my heart when it comes to that. So anyway, that just something just came to my mind. I think if that's encouraging to anybody, just to know that guy who can't stand his job or can't stand where he's at in his life, I think we need to go back and look at these things, find out who you are, how did God make you, what's your superpower, and go find that and go change the world. That's the phrase that just keeps coming out of my mouth. And God will use that for you if you do that.
So I think, Kevin, it would be important for people to know how do they find out what their strengths are? Like, we never really talked about that
where
at
do
the
they go?
beginning.
Yeah.
Like, how do they find out where their strengths are?
good.
And then I definitely want you to plug your book
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
us.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. You can Google Clifton Strengths Assessment, and there's two ways you can take it. You can do the top 5 or all 34. I would suggest doing all 34 because your dominant strengths really go 10 to 13. It's nice to see the other ones too, but you just get a lot more information with that. And why wouldn't you want to know all your strengths? So just Google Clifton Strengths Assessment. It's the same exact thing. If you hear me or anyone else call it Strength Finders, that used to be the name. They changed the name during COVID to Clifton Strengths Assessment because that's what you do when 34 million people have taken your assessment. You change the name to something even more obscure. But that's what they did. Don Clifton was one of the guys who created it. But I highly recommend taking that and giving yourself that awareness. And, there's like great podcasts that Gallup has on this. There's great information they give you. There's great books on it. One of the books I really like around Strength Finders is called Love and Work by Marcus Buckingham. He actually helped Don Clifton create it, and he's just got a really great way of talking about it. And one of the things, kind of what y'all were just saying, pertaining to the book that I found that really stood out to me. They talk about loving what you do, and that's not always like easy, right? I might have a job I might work at Walmart, and maybe I don't really have a deep love for being a cashier at Walmart. However, I can find love in everything I'm doing, not necessarily loving the thing I'm doing.
That's
It's like
good.
maybe if my strengths are like really relationship driven, like Jen's are, I can love the fact that I get to connect with people every day that come through my line or that I work with. Or maybe if I'm heavy in influencing, like Kirk, I can find love in just showing up as a leader, like he was talking about. Leadership is a behavior, not a position. You don't need to be a manager, a director, a president, a CEO to be a leader. Leadership is a behavior again, like Kirk was talking about. A kid can be a leader. It's, are you taking the action of leadership? Are you inspiring and empowering other people? That's leadership. Because if you inspire me, you stimulate me to action, you empower me, you give me some knowledge or tools or something to do with this stimulation. And if a little kid is walking down the street and he picks up trash when he thinks nobody's looking, that's an act of leadership. He just did something without somebody having to tell him to do it to better society. That's leadership. And maybe that inspires me and empowers me to go be better. Maybe I pick up trash when nobody's looking the next time. And I don't jump on social media to tell everybody about it. I just do it, right? Because I'm a leader. And, if you truly are a professional of any kind, leadership is the fundamental requirement for success. The better leader you are, the better everything around you is getting. And the goal really is, as John Maxwell said, to be a leader of leaders, that level 5 leadership, where the people behind me, I'm not just creating leaders, but I'm creating leaders who create leaders. And that's how we really make an impact. And that's like the whole genesis of everything we do at my company, Kepple Coaching. And, if you're a leader or you have a team or you're a part of a team and you want to be better, do better, enjoy the people you're doing it with and enjoy what you're doing and dramatically increase the results, then, connect. And I can give you some great ideas on what that can look like. The easiest way is you can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn, Kevin Kepple. And, I love to connect with like-minded people and like-minded journeys. So anything I can do to help, just let me know what that is.
Absolutely. Tell everybody about your book.
Sure. Thanks. It's the same name as my podcast, Unlocking Your Freedom. I talk a lot about strength finders in there and different ways you can use it. So if you want to check that out, it definitely could. It has a little bit about my journey, but it's been really cool to see how received it was, and like that definitely had something bigger than me behind it, which is kind of everything we're talking about today. It's just followed the breadcrumb of love that God kind of laid out for me, and fortunately this book got birthed, which was like 10 times harder than I ever thought it would be. I was like, I can write, like, watch this. And it took, I think I wrote it 4 times, like completely different versions. And, finally it got published. And I was like, wait, I could do better, and that's my maximizer in the basement, right? Just like, but I'd still be working on like the 8th version if I finally wouldn't have just pulled the trigger and like put it out of my hands. But check it out. See if it helps. And you can find it on Amazon or wherever. And check out the podcast. I have lots of different leaders I feature on there. And it's man, we're all in this thing together. So anything I can do to help you, just let me know what that is.
Where can they find your podcast? Tell them where they can go and find that.
Yeah, just any podcast app, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you would find podcasts, Google Play. Just type in "Unlocking Your Freedom" with Kevin Kepple. I've got like 200 episodes out, so it should be fairly easy to find one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot more than what we got.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I've been at it for a few years. So.
You've been at it for a while. That's great, though. That's awesome. Well, this is great. I think I think anybody listening to this would, if they really are listening, they're going to feel empowered and they're going to want to go check out Strength Finders. Go do it. And I will kind of reiterate what you just said, Kevin, about if you're going to go do that, do all 34. When I first did, I only did 5. And then when I started go through your teaching and through even Jennifer's like, no, you got to go do 34. You got to go do them all. Well, I don't want to go pay another $50 or whatever it is. But I did that, and it was so eye-opening because when I only got the 5, I went, wait a minute, but I know I've got this. And the competition in me is just like getting in the basement, getting mad because, wait a minute, I know I've got that. Well, then when I took them all, I'm like, oh yeah, see, there it is. And like you said, anything in that top 13 could potentially be one of your top strengths, and understanding that. And that's part of the growing process of that. So please go do that, guys. That is great. Check out Kevin Kepple and check out get his book, read his book, check out his podcast. go through it. I know it sounds like we're really edifying Kevin. He did not tell us to do that. We wanted to do that because he's helped change our life. So check that out. I know this is a little different episode than what people are used to, but I think people are going to really love it. I think they're going to really enjoy it, but also it's going to empower them. So, Kevin, you got any closing comments or anything that you'd like to say? What's that one thing that if you say, man, after all the things we've talked about, what's the one thing you want to say to kind of encourage others?
Yeah, man, I want to reiterate what you're saying. It's so important that you understand what makes you you, and how you can really use that to create more for yourself, more for your family, more for God, more for the people that you interact with. Like the more you grow, the more you can give. And it's so simple, but that's our responsibility, is to really express the gifts that we have in the most powerful ways and continually iterate that. And there's nothing standing between you and everything you want except for the decision to be more. And that's a daily decision, and I have to remind myself multiple times a day, like, hey, just keep going. Like, you don't have all the answers, you never will, and that's okay. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be better, just a little bit better each day.
That's good. Goal is not to be perfect, it's to be better. I love that. That's a good closing comment to me. For me specifically, I know that's something I struggle with as well. So that's great. Jen, you got anything else that come to mind? Well, Kevin, brother, thank you so much for being with us today, man. I'm honored to have you with us. I really am, brother, and appreciate what you've done in our lives and what you've done for many other people across the country. We look forward to that. Thank you for what you've done with Cross Trail Outfitters and working with some of our guys and that type of stuff. So we really appreciate you being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I love you guys and everybody listening. You're in good hands with these two, so keep listening.
I appreciate that. And for everybody listening, man, thanks for joining us again around our campfire with Wild Pursuits and Cross Trail Outfitters.
Bye, buddy.
1 second. I'm gonna stop the recording. Can you keep your